We all love a good Cricket World Cup, right? The huge crowds, the big moments, the drama. But for most of the teams in the world, that's not where their story begins. So have you ever really stopped to wonder, how does their journey to the big stage actually get started? You know the scene, the massive stadiums, the famous players, the superstars. It's the absolute peak of the sport, broadcast to millions all over the globe. Yeah, that's the cricket most of us know and love. But what about a team from, say, Nepal or Namibia? Their road to the World Cup looks totally different. It definitely doesn't start in some giant packed stadium. So how in the world do they even get a chance to compete for that trophy? Well, the truth is, that dream begins way, way out of the spotlight. We're talking years before the first ball of the main event is even bowled. And it's an absolutely fascinating story that shows just how global this game really is. Okay, so this whole global structure, it's all built around one central idea. It's called the ICC pathway. And this is the official system, the rule book, that makes that World Cup dream a real possibility for everyone. And you know, the concept behind this pathway is actually beautifully simple. But putting it into practice, whoa, that's a whole different story. It's incredibly tough. The best way to picture it is like a giant ladder. Any country that's a member can start climbing, right from the very bottom rung, with that huge prize waiting at the top. So let's break down how this ladder actually works. First, a team has to battle its way through sub-regional qualifiers. That's just to get a ticket to the regional finals. If you manage to win that, then you get a shot at a global qualifier, where you're up against the best teams from all the other regions. It's only after you've conquered every single one of those tough stages that you finally reach the World Cup. All right, so that's the system in theory, right? That's what it looks like on paper. But what does it actually look like in the real world? Well, here's the crazy part. This whole process isn't some far-off concept. It is happening as we speak, right now. And this is probably going to surprise you. You want to play in the 2028 World Cup? That journey is starting now. Think about that. We're talking about a 2-year qualification grind just to get a spot at the main event. I mean, look at this. The very first steps on the road to the 2028 World Cup, they're already being taken, and not where you might think. We're talking about places like the Cayman Islands, Ghana, Japan, and these aren't just little practice games. These are the official, foundational blocks of a World Cup campaign. And this right here is the whole point. It just shows you so perfectly how the World Cup dream is alive and kicking in every corner of the globe. It's not just a fantasy for a dozen top teams. It's a real, tangible goal for countries on every single continent. And that's all thanks to this pathway system. But wait, it gets even bigger. This isn't just for the men's T20 World Cup. This exact same system is running at the same time for a bunch of other tournaments. So just in early 2026, you've got U19 women's qualifiers happening in Uganda, the U19 Men's World Cup itself over in Zimbabwe and Namibia, and the final global qualifier for the women's T20 World Cup in Nepal. It's this nonstop, overlapping cycle of high-stakes cricket. So we've talked about the big qualifiers, but for these countries, international cricket is way more than just those pathway events. I mean, if you really want to get better, you have to be playing all the time, right? And that's exactly where stuff like Tri-Series comes in. They're absolutely crucial. Take a look. Nepal is hosting the UAE and Oman. Meanwhile, Namibia is playing host to Scotland and Oman. And these are not just friendly warm-up games. Nope. These are crucial, high-stakes matches that give these teams the kind of tough, regular competition they absolutely need to get ready for the pressure cooker of the pathway. So when you zoom out and look at the whole picture, what you see is this really rich, vibrant ecosystem. It's a constant mix of everything. You've got the men's qualifiers, the women's qualifiers, the U19 stuff, and all these Tri-Series and other tours happening all the time. And the best part is, every single piece feeds into the others, building stronger teams and growing the game everywhere. Okay, so we've looked at the system, we've seen the qualifiers in action, and we've talked about all the other competition that's going on. So what's the big picture here? What does it all really mean? And this really is the heart of the matter. When you see a team like the USA or Afghanistan or Nepal making waves on the world stage, it is not an accident. It is not some lucky fluke. It is the direct result of this deliberate, structured, and competitive pathway that gives more and more countries a real shot at playing meaningful, high-level cricket on a regular basis. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, it is massive. We're talking about more than 70 nations starting out on this T20 World Cup pathway. 70. All of them have the exact same dream, and they're all fighting tooth and nail for just a tiny handful of spots in the final tournament. The competition is just brutal, right from the very beginning. So the next time you're watching a World Cup and you see one of the so-called smaller nations pull off a massive upset against a giant, you'll know the real story. You'll know it wasn't some miracle out of nowhere. It was the end result of a long, brutal, hard-fought journey that started years before in a place you might never have expected. And that just leaves one big question. Who's it going to be next?